Welcome to the Summit Sessions podcast, everyone. I am your host, Katelyn Natalie Laurent, and today with me I have the wonderful husband and wife duo, Cass and Katherine Morrow, with me today. How are you guys?
Best day of our life.
I love it. Always such the positive attitude. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, I want to dive into your background just a little bit. If you don't mind, could you share a bit of your story? Like, how did you go from struggling in your own marriage to helping thousands of people? Well, not people, couples worldwide.
Well, it's people and it's couples. It depends how you look at it. But yeah, well, essentially, we the quick version is this. I abused Catherine for years, emotionally, physically, in the bedroom. Okay. Had a restraining order and I had to get my poop together. I was going to go to jail. Okay. And along the lines of growth and personal growth, essentially, I was, a very abusive, negative, terrible person. And I became what we would describe today as baseline normal. Okay. And so that was 4 years of bad hell, is what we call it. And then 2 years of well, shit. Okay. And then in that space of wanting, both of us wanting more, Catherine me thinking I was so great and Catherine thinking that
He wasn't there yet.
that's right. Eventually, Catherine started to make some changes, which actually was a catalyst and it supercharged all the growth and why I can teach what I teach today. So it went from neutral to the man I am today. Okay. And along the lines of losing everything with COVID, we had a gym, we lost everything. Catherine said, well, you've been coaching for years. Show men what you've been doing. And so I did. I went mega viral very, very fast and essentially started to tell the whole story and started to tell people what I'd done and how it hurt Catherine. Not that you wanted that. You were.
I was actually really reserved about sharing our story. I hated being transparent on social media, telling everybody what we went through because people thought that we were a power couple. People thought that there were no cracks in the foundation. And so when we went public with our story of abuse, I was embarrassed, very embarrassed. I didn't want him to tell the story. I finally got comfortable with it. And then that's when the business really started to shift because I started getting more comfortable. And then we started the women's side of the business. So he coaches men, I coach women. They're two different companies. We believe that most of the time one person is engaged in doing the work and one isn't. And so traditional couples therapy requires both to do the work or you drag your partner kicking and screaming. Our programs are built independently so that you can come to the program as a wife and inspire change in your husband, or you can come to the program as a husband and inspire change in your wife by making the changes within yourself, because that's what we both ended up doing.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Now, the thing that shocked me the most with you, Cass, is that you openly identify as a self aware, managing severe narcissist.
Yeah.
No idea that existed because, as we're taught and what we have seen on social media, thank God for social media, which is good and bad, is that once a narcissist, always a narcissist, and there's no way of managing it at
Mhm.
all. What made you come to that realization, and what role has it played in your work?
Well,
Can I say something before you
yes.
explain
Yeah.
that? So, social media is great, but you're right. Social media paints people in a certain light and says that they can't change. There's a lot of research out there that shows that narcissism can't be cured. You don't get cured of narcissism, but you can make progress and you can have success by managing your own behaviors. So, yes, social media is great and it allows us to know things about narcissists and those things are usually true, but it's wrong in saying that you can't make progress.
Yeah, that's like telling an alcoholic or a drug addict that they can't change, as far as we're concerned. And they do this with everything. Oh, I have ADHD. It causes people to victimize themselves and not have the change. And so it was really in the growth after Catherine had started to really stand in her own strength. So not allow the abuse anymore, but as well love me in a way that caused my reflection. And then she felt safe enough that she could tell me. I mean, nobody even really understood narcissism at that point. Okay. But Catherine was starting to see some of these negative things that you see online.
I thought he was a sociopath, actually.
Yeah. Yes.
So in the beginning, a few months into our marriage, when everything blew up, I thought I married a sociopath. I did not even know what a narcissist was. I didn't know what gaslighting was, crazy making. I didn't know what any of that was until I spoke to a therapist. And then it still took a while before I realized that he was a narcissist. I then thought, okay, maybe he's not a sociopath. I think he has borderline personality disorder.
Like seven of me.
All seven of him had borderline personality disorder. And so in the end, we now know that he has narcissistic personality disorder, but I didn't tell him that. I didn't bring it up until it was safe enough for me to say, hey, I think that we might want to look into this. I think this sounds like you. And I was very delicate with it. I didn't just come out one day and say, hey, you're a narcissist. And I definitely didn't say it when we were in a fight. I waited until it was safe. I waited until the symptoms were showing and that he was open to hearing and not showing in the moment. You can't tell a narcissist they're a narcissist and think that it's going to go well. You have to be delicate. You have to make sure that you know what you're talking about and that you're coming at it with love, not with judgment. Because I loved him. I still love him. And
Of course. Oh,
I don't love the narcissist, obviously, but how was he going to fix them if he didn't know they were there?
well, and the thing you have to understand about narcissists, and I think this is missed amongst people just victimizing themselves, is that narcissists just don't know how to love and they don't know how to receive love. So this is why you have a super high and a super low. It's always the roller coaster. So when she was loving me in a different way, again, not tolerating anything that would still go back to the abusive side of things, okay, but loving me in a different way, being more patient, empathetic, and understanding, she was able to reality check me. She'd be able to, maybe you want to hear a story, but she'd be able to say, do you see how that doesn't make sense? And it would be a light bulb. And then when you realize that as a narcissist, you go, okay, I can have more. I can do better than this. Like, because we only know the way that we've been taught.
And the stories they make up in their mind,
That's right.
cognitive distortions and just crazy realities that they convince themselves is true, is reality. And so that's what he means by reality checking. I'd be able to show him why what he's thinking is incorrect, by using love and logic, really.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Cass, do you think that your narcissistic behavior has to do contributes to your childhood?
I think my personal belief, and I know there's different conflicting opinions, but my personal belief is you're raised to be a narcissist. You're trained to be a narcissist. I believe, without actually having a test from my father, adoptive father, that he is a full blown severe narcissist. My twin brother also. So we grew together that way. My mom, just super selfish. And I think that can do it too, because you end up fighting for your love. And even the men that I help, I wouldn't call them all narcissists, but they all have behaviors of narcissism and they have to learn to manage them the same way. So they're all raised from that. It's programmed, it's edited programming. It gets worse and worse and worse. So by the time you meet the person that you love, because you're so devastated and not wanting to lose them, in that fear, you destroy them. You just rip them apart.
Which makes no sense, but none of us can actually get inside the head of a narcissist and understand, because it's completely illogical. It's irrational. It doesn't make any sense. They love us so much that they need to destroy us.
But how you can understand it really is the same thing, that even if you don't struggle with any of these, let's call them disorders, okay? If you've ever been angry and said something you shouldn't have said, that's the same thing. Fine, I want a divorce. Fine, I'm sleeping on the couch, agreeing with them to get away from them. Or just saying, fuck you, I'm leaving. It's the same thing. We all say stupid things when we're hurting and we're angry and we're victimizing ourselves. It's just that narcissists, people like me, we're really good at it.
Wow, that is really truly insightful because yes, there have been times where I have been arguing with my partner and we have both said things out of spite. I've always done it to where if you want to be petty, I'm going to go to the next level petty with you. It was sort of bad competition of who can hurt each other more, and it's not good. Now, Catherine, I have to commend you because not all women would stay and fight. They would try to get down to the bottom line of what they have done to push their husband that way to the point where if there was no resolution, they would just leave. What made you want to stay and fight?
Well, my reason for staying then is a lot different than my reason for staying now. But when we reached our rock bottom, we had 1-year-old twins, baby girls, and I was pregnant with our third child. And I had been coasting and sweeping things under the rug for so long that I was numb and I was checked out. And so we got to our rock bottom. This would have been in mid to end of 2020. And I didn't want to lose 50% custody of my babies that were already born and my unborn child. And I knew that he would be able to plead a good enough case and make a good enough case for himself that we would have to share the children 50% each. And I wasn't willing to allow him to raise our children without supervision. I did not think that it was going to be emotionally safe. Not only that, I didn't want to lose 50% custody of my children. I am still obsessed with our children and I want to spend time with them. And I would be it would tear half of my heart out to have to share custody. Worse because of the person that was going to be watching them and parenting them when I didn't believe that he was capable of parenting. So because I knew that we were at do or die, I decided if he's not going to make the changes that I need, I have to try to fix this. And I actually thought that I could put a band-aid on it. I thought I'll just fake my way through. I will do whatever I need to do to make our marriage palatable and livable while we have children under our roof. And I'm just going to move, full steam ahead with doing whatever I needed to do to save my children. And in that, I learned how to control my defensiveness. I grew in my empathy. I was forced to control my behaviors. And in controlling my behaviors, it allowed me to see him for a different person. And so me controlling what I could control, which I thought, I always say I never held a candle to him. I was maybe 10% of the problem. And usually I tell people it's not 90-10. In our situation and in a lot of the situations that we see, because we see the worst of the worst, it often is 90-10. But you have no idea the power that you have in your 10% of control. You can change the course of your life. You can save your family. You can save your marriage. And in trying to save my children, in trying to save custody of my children, I fell back in love with my husband, with the man that I thought that I married, only he was now better. And he was more receptive to me. I was more loving. I was more empathetic. I was more compassionate. I wasn't defensive. I wasn't angry. I couldn't afford to lose my temper, because if I lost my temper, now he was at the point where he might walk out. And if he walked out, he was fighting for custody of our children. So there was no room for error. And so through fighting for my children, I got my whole family, which is the most beautiful thing. And that's what I teach women now, because women have no idea the power that they hold by even just controlling themselves. The ripple effect in their family is just unbelievable.
That's the opposite, because you have women nowadays. And again, this goes back to the whole social media aspect, where you have women that think I can keep my person if I control them.
Mm.
And even now to this day, I hear women that are out and about that are just degrading towards their husbands, like just nasty, barking back, giving them attitude. You need to do this, 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 this. And I have to stand there and go, wow, I have to give props to the husband, because he's biting his tongue. He's not getting angry now. When they get in the car and leave, who knows what happens? It could be a whole nother story. But I see that as why a lot of marriages fail. And then you have it to where, like they stay for the kids, but then as soon as the kids are 18 and they're off at college, it's like, we're done. We're splitting. You go your way, I'm going my way. And you hear, like, I only stayed with you for the sake of the kids. How do
That's
you personally feel, aside from what you did because you fought your family, which I think is great and it's beautiful, and you both seem happier than ever. Because if I were in your same boat, yes, I would most likely absolutely 100% do the same thing, because my whole thought process is you're not taking 50% of my children. Like, no, that's not happening. How do you feel about the couples that just stay together for the sake of the kids?
I think it's just a waste. You're coasting. If you even think you can make it that many years, typically you probably won't.
because most people stay for the kids, but they don't do the work.
That's right.
So they just coast, they check out. And then your kids aren't getting a healthy version of you, a healthy version of the other parent, a healthy role model in the marriage. But I mean, I'm not going to knock those people. I think that relationship wise, it's a mistake to stay for the children, but there is also the covenant of marriage. They are committing. But I think it's just not the best way to go. If you're going to stay for the kids, work on yourself, because even if you're, like you mentioned, you're trying to control your partner, that's not going to work.
But if you're there, why wouldn't you do your best? If you don't love your job, are you going to go there and halfway it? No, because then you're going to get fired, right? So I don't understand the mentality. We don't understand the mentality of doing nothing, but that's because we did nothing for so long and fought for ourselves and followed the same path as everyone else. And now we realize that's why we can break away from traditional methods, and we're innovating the field as coaches, not counselors, because we needed to see something different in the world.
I love that there are coaches out there that are taking what they've been through and what worked for them and are sharing it, but putting a twist on it, because I feel that you have a lot of coaches that are out there that are preaching the same methods that you guys are. I have to sit back and go, did you really go through this in like your own life? Or are you just going based off books that you've read?
That happens
Yeah.
a lot.
Oh,
Therapists, so many therapists have not saved their marriage.
One of my biggest competitors is a therapist, And he has, as far as I understand, it's an okay program. I still get a lot of his men. He's never even been married. Like, you people have to ask the right questions. Have they been through something? There's another competitor. It's a great program. I really like this guy's content, but he's a heroin addict. Most people are not heroin addicts and dealing with that, right? So if you're not dealing with somebody who's been where you've been or worse than what you're going through, then you're hiring the wrong person. And most people don't even think to ask. Second thing is, what are the tools and the systems? Like, we're literally creating systems and tools because people didn't know how to do response versus reaction. Okay, STAT, follow the acronym. Climb the rejection ladder. Why? Because nobody likes to be rejected. You need to understand this stuff. The third thing is, are you being sold? Whether it's a therapist, a coach, a course, are you being sold?
Are you making an emotional decision based on the call that you have with this company?
Mhm.
Or are you choosing someone to follow that has been where you are?
These are the biggest mistakes that we're seeing when by the time, because we see a lot of people that have spent a lot of money and trying to move themselves and they don't understand why. And this causes a massive problem in society today, which is, I've already tried everything.
Mm-hmm.
We always laugh and go, are you kidding? We spent $500,000. We went through hell. We went through 2 more shitty years, and then we keep getting better now, right? Every level of safety unlocks a new level of intimacy. You just have to understand, if you follow down any of those other paths, you end up victimizing yourself and causing your own failure.
Now, do you feel like when the pandemic happened and the world shut down, do you feel that that helped or hurt a lot of marriages and relationships?
Destroyed, and also financially destroyed a lot of marriages, which caused more problems. But then it forced a lot of people to stay. So if you look at the perspective of real world thinking, like I would do, well, that's great news. Now you're forced to stay there because you don't have the funds to move on, right? So that's great news, but it did cause so many more problems. Again, another great question to ask people. That's when we saved our marriage. We lost $1 million gym, brick and mortar, during COVID. So we were broke. We couldn't go date. Nobody could. And that's when we saved our marriage. So you have to ask yourself again, how much are you really struggling right now?
Now, how often do you guys date each other?
Every day.
Yeah.
All the time. We have mini dates. We're always, our life is a date for us. Actually, we just celebrated our 10-year dating anniversary and our 10-year wedding anniversary because they're very close.
We're back to back.
Back to back. Yeah, we only did
Congratulations.
before. Thank you. And we didn't even really celebrate. We celebrated the dating anniversary because it was convenient. The wedding anniversary we actually canceled, and we didn't post anything on social media because we feel like every day is a date.
Yeah, we basically said in the morning of Valentine's Day, so the second day, said, we really didn't do much this year. We both kind of said the same thing, different way at the same time, out of our mouth.
Yeah.
Didn't really do anything, but I feel like every day's.
We're just so
date.
happy.
Yeah.
So we don't have to make a big deal out of these big days. But we do date weekly. So sometimes we'll go on a date twice a week, actually go out without the children, get a babysitter. We like to go to the farmer's market on Saturdays, and sometimes we like to go out during the day. I feel like I'm 85. I'm 42, but I feel like I'm 85. So going out after dark is not something that I really like to do very often.
And we also recognize that in our bad years, going out was where a lot of the problems happened,
Right. Staying out too late,
We
having
don't-
too much to drink.
Yeah, so we don't do anything, like we put boundaries in place to protect us at all times,
Mhm.
right? And so that's one of the things. But yeah, to really answer your question, 5 to 10 minutes a day, usually, at least a few minutes, once a day. Then we have longer times together. A lot of times that's with the kids, of course, as well. And then we go out, and then we have nights out as well. We make
Very few
intentional.
nights. Though.
Very few nights out, yeah. But we make
Like
it
overnights.
intentional.
We do overnights sometimes.
Yeah.
We're very intentional about dating.
Oh.
Wouldn't you date this woman?
Heck yeah.
Now, since you asked that question, if you could, knowing what you know now, you took a look at yourself in the mirror, did a reflection of yourself, would you date yourself? Knowing what you know now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We've done so much work on ourselves that I always say I'd be stupid to leave him at this point. And he'd also be stupid to leave me. The grass is not greener on the other side. The level of work that we've done personally, we're not perfect, but we're always striving for perfection. And I always tell people say, don't compare yourself to perfect. I say, do compare yourself to perfect. Strive for perfection, because when you're shooting for the top, that's as close as you're going to get to being as good as you were ever going to be. If you only strive to be 80%, you're never even going to get to 80. So strive to be the best. So the level of work that we've done personally in our marriage, bar none.
Yeah, we just firmly believe nobody's going to do it. See, we don't take the whole best version stance. We say you're never going to be your best version. You're always still growing. Like otherwise, what, you become your best version and you put your feet up again and you just let things go to crap again. Right. So it's just constant effort. So yeah, I would think it was one of the things that really helped move us when things were good. But see, when things start to get good, not great yet, even the smallest things feel like the whole world is crashing down. So one of the things that we used was actually encouragement towards each other. I feel like it might have been a little bit defensive, at least on my end, but it would be like, you'd be crazy to live without me. Or we'd support each other with, we'd be stupid to leave each other because no one's going to work like this. No one's going to try as hard as this just because you look around and that's what's happening. Everybody's quitting. That's why we have a job.
Yeah. In fact, if I wasn't married to you, I would be the only person I would date.
This is probably the same thing for me.
I'm not going back out there.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
yes. I mean, even if you think about, affairs aren't as common as people think if you look at real numbers, but they do happen. And of course, because people come to us with the worst stories, often there's an affair. One of the key things that I teach a man, at least in my program, is it's the worst thing that you feel like you're going through, but it's actually the best thing for you because the dating pool sucks. Nobody's growing. All the same issues that you caused for your wife and you caused for the problems in your marriage with yourself, who you are, no one's going to grow. You can change now and you're going to look really freaking good to your wife and then you're going to get it back. And that's why we can have a woman living with another man and she still comes home. Right.
Yes, that's very true. Because I have heard from a lot of people, men and women, that have said that the reason why I have strayed away from my relationship or my marriage is because I wasn't getting the attention that I deserve. Now, if someone comes to you and says, I'm not getting the attention that I deserve at home, how would you advise them? Because I know a lot, it's people throw around the word, I deserve, I'm entitled. And growing up, when we're young, our parents always tell us, you're not entitled to anything. So when it comes to a relationship, how would you give advice to someone that comes to you and goes, "Well, I deserve to be this way. I deserve to feel this. I deserve to have this."
Well, I think it's valid to feel that way. And you should get the best from your partner, but who are you first?
Mm.
So if a woman came to me and said, I'm not getting the respect I deserve, the love I deserve, the attention I deserve, whatever it is, what are you giving? Who are you putting out? Are you the woman that you thought you would be? Or has your marriage stripped you of some of these positive qualities? And you're in something that you call negative sentiment override. All you see is the negative. You're filled with bitterness, resentment, and you're entitled, all of those things. So the first thing that I would say, and we run people through a whole 12-week program. And so it's not, just advice on one thing. It's starting with foundational things like gratitude and compassion and leadership and things like that. So I would ask them to highlight for themselves who they are.
Yeah. Respect is like the easiest one for a man, right? Besides sex. Okay. But then are you respectful? Like we actually have to teach people to say thank you like they mean it,
Mhm.
to be respectful and realize, I guess I did call her a name or him a name too. You know, what do you mean you're entitled to respect? It's actually such a gray area when you do personal growth. And I mean, really do it. But you should know you're very proud of yourself when you've done the growth. And I don't mean justifying or validating yourself or seeking it from someone. I mean, you know who you are and you'll know that you're in a position where you quote unquote deserve, or you are quote unquote I'm entitled to the reciprocity. She's my translator here.
Okay.
What sounded good.
Reciprocity?
So-
It is right.
You'll know that you actually deserve or you're entitled to that when specifically you don't have contempt. Hey, if the old me messed everything up, I get it. I love you. And you can take a different step. But see, you're not going to be angry. You're not going to be contemptuous. You're not going to be bitter or resentful. You're not going to say, fine, whatever, let's end it. You just understand what happened, happened. There's nothing you can do about the past. And if they want to stay stuck there, then you can take a different outlook on where you should be in your marriage.
Yeah. And we say sixes can't get with tens, and we don't mean looks. So if you're in the relationship and you're both a six and you decide to level up and you turn yourself into a 10, there's two things that can happen. Your partner is going to level up with you. Naturally, that's what your partner will do 90% of the time. Or you are a 10 and your partner stays a six, you've now outgrown your partner and you have a decision to make. But when you do that, you become the person that, sure, you might deserve all of those things, but it has nothing to do with your partner. It has everything to do with you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And keep in mind, people that come to us, it's the worst. So somebody is at rock bottom. Okay. They view their partner as a 10. Okay. And they feel like they're maybe a 2, a 6. But when they grow and it's grow or die, right? So they outgrow their partner. They start to realize their partner was never a 10 because it's never one person. Even Katherine saying she took 10%, 100% responsibility of the 10% of the toxicity, the abuse, the problems. Okay. She started to look like a lower person to me because I was growing. And she even says, she didn't give me the platform to grow. She was anchoring my growth because she wasn't allowing me to grow or accepting my changes. And that's because people are still butting heads, fighting for why they deserve something or they're entitled to something. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a whole lot of sense. I want to get into your mission, which is to disrupt divorce, which I think is phenomenal because while couples who divorce, they're doing it because it's now I feel better. I feel like, especially when kids are in the picture, you're hurting the children more than it is about you being free because you may be free and happy, but then you look at your kids and you're like, okay, what about them? What about their feelings? You've now broken up the household that in their eyes, because they're young and they're innocent. And I personally think that children at a young age, they block out the negativity and they see the positive. So if they see mommy and daddy hugging, kissing, or laughing, that's what they're going to remember. They don't remember the bad. And I know we briefly talked on this, but if you could share what are other reasons that marriages fail today?
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple things there. So disrupting divorce, that's the vessel for really changing the world for our children like that, right? I mean, how can we tell our kids they can achieve anything they want and then half-ass our own life and expect them to? Why do you think 20-year-olds don't want to get married anymore? Right. So you're right. We have to show them better example. And I'll often challenge you and I'll say, you're not a good mom. You're not a good dad. People go, what are you talking about? I go, you don't even care about where your children are going to live. They can't buy a house. You're watching porn. What if they get trafficked? If they get trafficked, you're going to open your screen and there they are. And there's so many other examples I could give right now. So if you want to actually do something different and then change the world, at least by example in your own home, then we can talk about what you're willing to do. And so that's where the mission's really going. It's like, what's our legacy, our children, what life are they going to actually live in? But other reasons why people are failing is first and foremost, number one is people think it's too easy to quit and that validation of victimization, right? People get inherently too selfish and people, I'll say for men, for example, they focus all on their sexual needs and talk about how great they are and don't realize that, they're not a nice guy. They're a nice asshole. They're nice as long as they get what they want, and if inherently it's boiled down to people validating themselves and needing validation from their partner to survive instead of understanding that there's a whole lot more. If your purpose is your spouse, your kids, your job, that's it. You're boring. You're not exciting to talk about. Stop thinking you're living your life doing what you need to do. This is caught people lose themselves in their identity because they're married. I think that is the number one cause of these marriages going to divorce. Don't even know who you are anymore.
Yes, and we do have a lot of people, men and women, that lose themselves. And mainly it's, I honestly think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a lot of women that lose themselves, especially after giving birth. Because of course our body changes, which is natural. But if you have, say, for instance, you have a woman who was a size 6 her whole life, and then she gives birth, and now she's, let's say, she goes to a size 10. Her husband can sit there and give her the best compliments in the world. You look amazing. You look beautiful. You look even more beautiful than you did when I first met you. Some women take that as a compliment, but some women take that as negativity. And I have to ask the wife on this one. How would you feel personally? Say, for instance, after you having your kids and you went from being, say, a size 6 to all of a sudden now you're a size 10, and your husband were to tell you, you're even more beautiful now than you were when I first met you. Going back then to how it was, how would you have taken it?
I'm not sure how I would have taken that because I know that that's how he would have expressed himself to me. But I think the biggest thing is part of that identity loss when that does happen is that the wife, the woman is no longer happy with herself. And so if you're not happy with yourself, it's really difficult to be happy with your partner because one of the expectations in marriage is intimacy. And if you're not feeling good about your body, then you're not going to be as excited to be with your partner. the way that your partner needs. And after having children, that the level of desire can change as well. And so if you're not happy with yourself, you're not happy with your body, you're losing part of your identity with who you were with respect to how you look, with respect to how you feel. You now have these little people that depend on you. And then you're losing part of your identity in your marriage because often, often than not, your sex life changes when your body changes after you've had children. And it doesn't mean you can't get all of that back. You can get your body back. You can get your self confidence back. You can get that your sex life back. You can get the relationship with your husband back. You can get it all back. But when you have children, I call it the unexpected love triangle because you married who you thought was the love of your life. And then, crisis hits oftentimes. And then you have a baby anyway, and it slaps you in the face with love when you have your child. And now you have this love triangle where you love your child oftentimes more than you love your husband because of what's going on in your marriage, but you have this triangulation that naturally happens. And so your identity changes because now your identity is resting so much in your child. So you love your child more than you love yourself. You love your child more than you love your husband, and you didn't know that was going to happen. There's chaos and trauma and crisis in your marriage. Your body has changed. Your self-confidence has changed. You're not having sex with your husband. Now you're breaking the connection between the two of you. Who are you? Now you're a mom. You're not even putting your identity in your marriage anymore. You're putting your identity into who you are as a mom and not even within yourself. And so if your happiness rides on your relationship with your children, well, come on. It doesn't take long before your baby is a toddler and all of a sudden you're getting attitude and you're feeling frustrated with your child. And now what? You have no identity anywhere. So I think that there's so much that happens after having a baby, including the body image stuff.
Just for connection for your listeners, I mean, you don't even realize, but you just asked a perfect example, a question that gives a perfect example of how the loss of yourself, losing yourself, your identity is the number one cause. Because the more you understand things like that, you see, she brought up the toddlers and the emotional roller coaster that the children are going to bring you. And no mom is prepared for that. No matter what you think, no mom is prepared for that roller coaster day in, day out. And then a husband coming home and bringing his roller coaster, right, from his stressful day, from his wanting his needs met or whatever. And you see, everybody thinks that's the issue. Oh, we're fighting. No, you're not. See, right now, by even giving that compliment to her, he didn't even understand how she feels. No, you're the most attractive person on the planet, right? Of course, I would say things like that, but that would have to come after understanding how she feels about her body, right? Instead of trying to fix it like men do. And see, what we're doing is we're not allowing you to be the woman that you want to be, and we're not being who we want to be either. If she's gone 4 sizes up, maybe the way he needs to say it is different, right? It doesn't matter how you look. I love you for who you are. Could be a better way than saying, yeah, your body's better than it's ever been, is a fucking lie, right? She knows what she feels like and looks like. Don't lie to her. You know what I mean? But you don't have to be a douche about it either. Okay.
I love that. And I think I know that's a lot of questions that a lot of people have is how am I supposed to feel with that? Because it is a catch 22. Because I know I've heard it a couple of times and I've had to sit there and I'm like, I don't know how I should take this. I don't know if I should say thank you or if I should just stay quiet. And then of course you have kids that as we all know, kids are very honest and they tell us like it is. So I've had it to where my daughter has told me, she's like, Mommy, you look great. And I have to stand there and I have to go, okay, I can say thank you to her because it's like, you don't know what I look like before then. So, of course, to you, yes, I look great. But to other people, if they've seen me before and after, it's a catch 22. Now, you have the marriage reset program, which you have built on peace, partnership, and passion. Can you break down what those pillars mean and how they help men transform their relationships?
Yes, the easiest way to explain my program, and that's mine, that's not Catherine's, but the easiest way to explain it is most men think they have to recreate the spark, and that's within the passion pillar, okay? But there's no point if you don't have the foundation. So even if you weren't or aren't struggling with the kind of abuse or the toxicity that we did, you have a disconnect, which is usually where peace needs to come in. So even the couples that aren't really bitter enemies, but they're defending themselves and focused on their own needs, for example, attack, defend, even if it's not aggressive, you're missing peace, right? And so I show men a couple of men they need to be to restore peace. One takes responsibility for himself, and then one learns to let his wife feel, right? Get her feelings out. I tell guys, It's been 56 years since women have been allowed to initiate divorce. You really telling me in 56 years compared to centuries, you can't handle a woman getting her feelings out? And so when you do this, you start to realize that you unlock safety for her, and then that unlocks the intimacy that you've been fighting for. Okay, then partnership, we have to really take care of understanding the decisions that we make, the core values. For example, the compliment we just talked about and how you communicate to her with integrity, the decisions you make structuring leadership in your home, right? And in that, finding each other's strengths, because she's a powerhouse. I don't have to lead her everywhere in life. In fact, there's a lot of strengths that she has that can lift me, right? And so after you've done that, now we can restore passion. And that's two parts. One is you. Again, if you don't know you, then how can your partner love you? Like, you're actually unlovable if you don't know yourself, because you can't love you, right? So we find out and identify who you are, and now we can talk about the passion between the two of you. Okay, does that make sense?
It does. Now, Catherine, you've taken the Gottman method, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I did have to look up what that was because this is something that I have never heard of. And the definition that I found is it's research based approach to couples therapy that was developed by two doctors, which I'm going to take it as their husband and wife, John and Julie Gottman. They designed it to strengthen relationships by improving communication, deepening emotional connection, and managing conflict effectively. And then they have their 7 steps: building love maps, fondness and admiration, turning toward instead of away. Um, how did what's different about your approach, and how does it work?
Yeah, great question. So I'm trained in multiple therapeutic modalities. The Gottman method is my favorite. I love the Gottmans. They're amazing. They're an older couple and they have pretty dry humor and they're pretty real. But yes, they specialize in what I've taken from their approach is the way that they approach conflict management. Now, I've broken that down because it's made for couples. And we often don't get couples. I get the wife, he gets the husband, but often not ones that are married to each other. Sometimes we get couples together, but often not. And so when I'm teaching women how to manage conflict with their husbands, I need to make sure that I'm teaching them what they can do on their own without their husband's participation. So I break the Gottman method down into bite-sized pieces where it's not actually even the Gottman method anymore. The Gottman method would teach you that you should ask for a reframe if you hear contempt, or one of the 4 horsemen. So contempt, criticism, stonewalling, and defensiveness. I teach my wives that they need to allow, not to the point of abuse, but they need to allow the 4 horsemen, because if you can get past the 4 horsemen, then you can get your husband in a vulnerable state where you can see what's actually going on and you can get a deeper level of understanding, because now you haven't gotten defensive and you haven't called him out or corrected him on the 4 horsemen. You let him get that out and you've now softened your husband because you'll have a deeper level of understanding. I do take some of the principles that the Gottmans teach, and I do use some of the interventions in my program. But mostly, what I've done is I've completely taken them apart and revamped them and built them back up in a way that serves one person. You don't have to have both people on board, because what most people don't understand is when it comes to conflict management, you're not trying to solve the problem, but the end result, the Gottmans would say 69% of problems are not solvable. You end up managing them. I believe that when the way that I teach the interventions, you can get such a deep understanding, much deeper than I believe the Gottmans even know exists. You get such a deep level of understanding that one person is going to be willing to compromise far more than the other person. You build so much connection that it doesn't feel like sacrifice anymore. The Gottmans would teach that compromise is the end goal. Yes, compromise is the end goal, but sacrifice gets a bad rap. You're not giving up something. You're giving something to your partner. That's no longer compromise. That's shared connection. That's not compromise. That's bonding. And so I would say that you can solve almost all problems, because when you can get connected to your partner again in a way that you deeply understand each other, which again, that's what the Gottmans teach. They don't believe that the problem gets solved. I believe that we move forward in full resolution.
Mm-hmm. Which is why we go from like we talk about, you don't really have to deal with most issues. On our podcast, it's called Moral Marriage. It's the fastest growing marriage podcast because of ideas like this. Like, you don't have to deal with all the past. What if you just create the new? What if you just go where you both want to go? And sometimes it's like the initial compromise that she's talking about, or it may feel like sacrifice, but it no longer does. When you both just have the life that you want and you're laughing, you're dreaming, achieving, you have everything you want, then Why would it be a sacrifice?
If we solved our problems, I no longer believe the statistic that 69% of problems are not solvable.
Mhm.
I just don't believe it.
We both just love giving, right?
Doesn't feel like a sacrifice. It's marriage.
Would if from you guys, it would be safe to say that we should just need to throw out the word sacrifice when it comes to marriages and relationships, because we hear it from men and women. Oh, I sacrificed my career for you. I sacrificed
I think
this for you.
I think it's a mindset thing because I would never want to throw the word out because I believe in sacrificial love. I believe in loving him sacrificially, putting him first, loving my children sacrificially. So it should be a sacrifice, but it shouldn't feel like a sacrifice. And
Mm.
you can't use the regular definition or denotation of the word sacrifice because it gets that bad rap. So, yes, it's sacrifice. Yes, it's compromise, but really it's just growth together as a couple and going, like he said, you don't need to fix everything that happened. You don't need to fight about all the little things. You need to move the marriage where you want it to go. And if you go to that place where you both have similar goals, similar dreams, you don't have to have all the same goals and the same dreams, but there's going to be enough that's parallel and similar. That's what brought you together in the first place. A lot of times, you're going to be able to build this new marriage where it just doesn't feel like sacrifice. But I always believe that you should love your partner sacrificially.
You have to, along the lines of the mindset shift, you have to get to a point where you realize the world's not entirely wrong when they say it takes work. Your marriages take work. What you have to realize is it's not work when you get there. So if you can start to flip some of these mindsets and shift yourself and move where you want to go, then your partner has to follow. That's why we can take one person on board and not have both partners, because it's impossible. You can be angry over here, but life is awesome. She'd be crazy living without me. So if she's stuck over there, right? Then so and in the beginning it will feel that way, but you just have to be patient.
Mhm.
Right, be more impatient with yourself.
Yes.
Like, what else can I do differently?
No, that's actually nice though that you bring that up, because you have a lot of people that they do make that decision at night where they, before they put their head on their pillow, they do a recap of their day. And then they think of, okay, well, this is what I did today. I did this. And this is what I didn't do. So how can I make tomorrow better than it was today? What can I do differently that I didn't do today?
Yeah, you should take a step every single day that moves your tomorrow. That's it. There's only one option, or you're not even honoring who you say you are as a person. That's why your entitlement creeps in.
Now, how also do you feel about couples like journaling, writing down their feelings, not sharing it with their partner, but if their partner did something today that they just weren't happy with, and instead of addressing them because they don't want to cause any tension, they'll just write it down.
Well, if you're doing it to not cause tension, you're already setting yourself up for failure, right? You need to be able to have, like, think about it. A hard conversation is still an emotional connection if you get through it. She has a feeling, I have a feeling, we get through it. So you can't do it to appease your partner, afraid of their disapproval, or do it to get approval. But if you're doing it because of the reflection you're talking about, yeah, we have a whole training in my program on that. I'm sure Catherine does too. But you're supposed to reflect. I tell guys, stay up all night and learn, sleep faster if you need more sleep, right? Take those reflections and apply it. And then I'm not really wanting you to talk to your partner about it because, I mean, even on our story, we talk about it lots on our podcast. You're just, nobody cares about who you're going to be. So if you're doing the reflection to grow, just do it and grow. Bring the new person into the marriage and watch how you actually move it forward.
It can also be a way to process something without bringing contempt. So I teach something called therapeutic letters. And therapeutic letter writing involves you telling a story, writing it out to your husband or your wife using whatever colorful language you want. Your husband or wife is never going to see this. And so you let them know how you feel about what happened. And then you rip it up. Well, you read it out loud to an empty chair or to a friend, whatever, it doesn't matter. You get it out, you process it, because you absolutely should not be speaking to your husband that way. So if you feel, or your wife, if you feel the need to swear and cuss at your partner or to bring contempt and you need to get that out of your system, a therapeutic letter can be a great way to do it. And that's just like journal writing. So a lot of people will say, or I guess not a lot of people, but I've heard it, the text message that never gets sent. So you're journaling to get your feelings out, to get your thoughts out, things that you would never actually say. So you need to make sure it never gets read, because this is a way for you to get some of those negative things out, like contempt and criticism and blame. All of those things you can get out writing in your journal. And then if you can process those feelings by writing them, then you probably don't need to actually go have the conversation. But if you have to have a conversation, have a conversation. So that's what you were trying to say too.
Yeah, but the processing that she's talking about is so important, because otherwise, are you really ready for that conversation? We end up puking our feelings and our needs out because you're still processing it. I don't know about women, but my men, like, just talk, talk, talk. It's like, what time is it? The watch was made in England in 1912. It came over on a boat in 1926. There was hurricanes and whirlwinds, and we're just lucky it got here. Fuck you, I bought the rose gold straps, right?
What time is it?
You know what I mean? And so it just, what is the time? Answer the question. And the other thing I want to be very careful for your listeners is, she mentioned, in case you caught it, that you can share it with a friend. Make sure it's somebody that supports your goals to move forward.
The therapeutic, yes, therapeutic letter writing specifically is to, you read it to a friend and it's therapeutic. And so you would want to actually look at the rules for the therapeutic letter. We don't want you to go and just
Your husband did what?
Yeah.
You got to leave him. You know,
Yes,
dumbest.
exactly.
I think it's hard, because in these days you really don't know who's a friend.
Or who supports your marriage.
Yeah, 'cause people are, pain is more addictive than heroin. Okay. People are going to try to relate on pain on a different level. If you don't believe me, think about how much more viral a negative hook goes on social media than a loving hook. Okay. And so if you're speaking or surrounding yourself with people that don't believe in what you're doing, or are relating to your pain and saying, forget that person, you can do better, you're talking to the wrong people. This is the same thing if you're broke. Why would you follow someone broke to learn how to make money? Why? You know, if you're trying to lose weight, are you going to talk to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing in the gym or with their food? No. So it's the same thing in your relationship, but because we all get in our own feelings and want that validation and love and appreciation and justification, we share letters, we share texts, we share words with the wrong people. And sometimes it's because of obligation. It's your family, for example. It doesn't mean anything. Goals. Surround yourself with the people that can reach the goals with you.
Yes. Now, Cass, a question for you is, what is the biggest misconception about narcissists in relationships?
That they can't change. That's by far the number one. You know, you do have to want to change. So
You have to know that you're a narcissist first before wanting to change.
yes and no,
Well, you
because
can wanna change.
we can show you along the way, right? But the biggest misconception is that you can't change. If you realize that you want to change and you want help, even if it's just behaviors, because I mean, very successful people struggle with narcissism and traits. Okay. We all kind of sound like the narcissist in a fight anyway. Okay. So the biggest misconception is that you can't implement and take care. Actually, I would actually say there's one more that's even bigger. And that is that people who are thinking their partner's a narcissist don't realize how narcissistic they're being. Okay. And so in that, you end up supporting and validating yourself and victimizing yourself more. So what about you? Do you have another?
I think that the same one you said, that
Yeah.
narcissists can change. That is absolutely a misconception. You can read psychological journals and see proof that narcissists can change. It's just that everybody says that they can't, because you don't want to take responsibility for yourself. You want the cop out of, well, my husband's a narcissist.
Mhm.
That should be a big motivator to change your situation,
Mhm.
not to just say, my husband's a narcissist, he's at fault.
It's the
I do
biggest
actually believe it was his fault.
Yeah.
But you know what? I was the catalyst for change. I was the one that, when I controlled my defensiveness, my 10%, which was not a lot compared to him, I was the catalyst for change. So while yes, I think it was his fault and he was an asshole, what does that say about me?
Yeah.
For me making my changes, I was able to turn our marriage and family.
People don't even understand the gift that you have. If think about it, everybody's so focused on the trauma. So they're sitting in their pain, right? Like we talked about earlier, instead of ever creating the life that they want. The red is what I call love, right? And so if you can think about it like this, people that were abused or had a terrible upbringing, whatever, you know, all the crap, forget the stuff that they put you through. It's been the biggest gift on the planet for me to understand what love is like. You know, in fact, I used to say to her, even through the abusive years, it's your fault. I was put on this planet to love. Now I can see why, right? I just didn't know how to do it consistently. So you can give that to your partner instead of being sucked down this negative rabbit hole that they can't change. But this is what the world does. I mean, now the new thing is the detachment theories, and everybody, they'll DM you, oh, I'm an anxious avoidant. And so I'm like, stop. That's not who you are,
Stop making excuses for your behavior.
right?
I think that goes to say for everybody. And you, we do hear that. They always say, stop playing the victim. Sit back and think about why this has happened. I mean, it's the same thing for, criminals out there. You have someone that goes and robs a bank. If they can sit in court and go, well, I was told to do it or I was forced to do it. It's like, were you really? You made that choice to, not saying that being a narcissist is a choice, but just more of a,
Behaviors are still a
The
choice, though.
behaviors is definitely still a
Yeah.
choice, right? Think about
well,
it. Pain is more addictive than heroin. So, in all the lows that I felt, I would create more of that, right? Once you recognize, that's why I say best day of my life when you ask how I am, how we are, because you're responsible for your choices. You could lose 50 grand today and you're going to cry. I'm going to say, how do I make 100 tomorrow? Right? It's all choice. Your partner maybe is turned out to be super abusive. She had no idea, she was blindsided, had no idea what she was getting into. Most of my qualities back then were nothing like, it's not like she was repeating patterns with the same kind of man. She came from a good upbringing, but she was responsible for her choices. She still wants to make sure she has children all the time, healthy, you know, like people need to just focus on that. And it's your language. You know, you're an alcoholic. I'm recovering. Stop it. You're not. Just quit drinking. Right? It's what you tell yourself. You know, I deal with something called a nice guy all the time. And the guy who created that, they are all recovering nice guys. No, I destroyed that man. I destroyed him. And I was Ryan and now I'm Cass. You are responsible for your choices. You know?
but what are the warning signs that a marriage is in trouble?
I
Because I know most times you have couples on the inside, they don't see it, but then of course it's always the people outside, they can see it.
I think sometimes I think there's a lot of marriages where they look beautiful and perfect, and then you don't know. We had one before, and now we live it authentically. But everybody thought when they come to our gym, wow, Cass and Catherine. Well, it was Ryan and Catherine back then, but you know, so it can go both ways there. But I think the warning signs are obvious, right? The very first thing is you have to admit it. Like most people won't, right? If you feel like you want to put your hand up at church when they say who's struggling with finances, you don't have a problem putting your hand up. If you feel like you want to put your hand up when it's who needs prayer for marriage, that's one. When you can tell deep down inside, okay, you have to be honest with yourself. Two, intimacy is huge. And I don't mean when you have a baby, I mean when you don't feel connected. There's intimacy on all these different levels. And if you can understand that when you got together, you loved, you validated, you were so anxious to be there and ready to be there and available for each other. And then life gets in the way, career, children, whatever, you know, and you stop connecting as much and you start throwing your needs at your partner, blaming them. I mean, that is the easiest one right there. You just don't do this. You could say it nicely. In the beginning, it's always nice. Why don't you want me? That's the warning signs right there. When you're feeling like not wanted, not loved, right? Would you say anything different?
I think there's so many warning signs. When you start to make decisions that don't include your partner, if you're ignoring your partner, you're spending more time with your friends, you're spending more time with your children,
Your
you're
phone.
you don't have that desire to even be your partner's friend. So like just a little bit of disconnection where you're just choosing other things over your partner. That's a big one. And you feel the disconnection in a lot of different ways, which I think is reflected in intimacy and all the things that you just said. But there's so many different warning signs, but you'll feel it. You'll know.
I think everybody knows it. I think it's what you do with that knowledge when you start to feel it. Typically, we all do it wrong.
Now, how do you handle situations where only one partner wants to work on their marriage?
That's what we get 90% of the time. So I run a women's program, he runs a men's program. I run my women through the same modules, the same course. They can get one-on-one coaching so they can do, different things that cater to their exact situation, but every woman is the same story wrapped in a different package. Every man is the same story wrapped in a different package. There's so many different parallels. I do a conflict intervention every week with the people in both of our programs, and we do role play where someone will give us a situation and then I will role play it with someone. I don't even need to know the details. I can role play the men's side or the women's side, knowing exactly what that situation looks like, because the roots of all of the problems are the same. It's all disconnection and contempt and blame and all of those sorts of things. So regardless of
Peace, trust.
safety, peace, trust, yes. So when a woman comes into the program and her husband is not doing the work, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. I want the woman to go through her own issues with a fine tooth comb. I want her to highlight anything that she thinks could be an issue. I always say, you need to be the woman that you need to be, regardless of who your husband is. Who are you? And we need a heightened level of self-awareness on a lot of different aspects. And then we work on each one of those individual things. And by working on those things, your husband starts to notice. You start to build a relationship and connection with your husband again. And your husband is now willing to have conversations, willing to get through conflict, solve problems, compromise,
Mm.
connect, go on dates,
This
fall
is
back in love again.
same thing for the men, right? If you start to realize, see, everybody comes because they're losing it all. So the win is like, what can I do? Oh, my wife is talking to me. Oh, my wife, I got a guy this week. His wife's 2 days with me, and I give him one instruction with a video to send, say this to her. And he got the first I love you in 2 years. See, he's like, I love you. I got an I love you. That's a win. No, that is not the win. The win is in the tools. So what we have is a step-by-step system that we have fine-tuned. It came from us saving our marriage and what we wish we would have done different. And then it came from, putting out 250 episodes of podcasts and hearing feedback from people trying it. It came from coaching people, follow the steps. But to really answer your question, it's the tools, right? When you implement the tools, the win is in who you are in that implementation. So go to this guy for a second. Doesn't matter that she said I love you back. Yes, that's great feedback, the byproduct. But when you're the one that's in and your partner's out, well, you weren't going to even send her a message because you were afraid that she was not going to respond. What's the point? Well, then you're not who you want to be. You said something to this one of my men recently on a coaching call. He's like, well, she told me not to hug. So should I just stop? And she goes, do you want to hug with Mary? Like, who do you want to be? You know what I mean? And when you start to understand that, that's why you can stand in your own power, your own strength, and lead your partner away from the shit.
How would you advise couples? Because you have couples out there where you have one's love language is physical touch, whether it's hugging, rubbing, massaging, kissing, whichever. And then you have the other partner who's just, stay right there, blows kisses. How do you advise and deal with that?
I have something, I call it the real five in my program. So the first thing you need to understand is this. The five love languages, there's like, I can't think it's 85 or 125 books that you can use the love languages with, okay? It's been blown up and misused and bastardized, just like almost everything on the planet that's a good thing, okay? So first and foremost, what you need to do is stop using it to get your needs met, your love language met. Everybody needs to start giving. Go back to it. If you want respect, give respect, right? If you want admiration, give admiration. If you want to be lifted, lift your partner, right? Everything that you want, you can do without the love languages to start, okay? Because that's the root of it. It's not how you feel loved, okay? Then the next thing is just give their one or two languages, whatever they are. Of course, you should, okay? Because you love them, because you're not worried about you. Then what we do in the real five is we stack them and we use all five languages to create opportunities for, let's say, dates, mini dates, conversations, home dates, doing things together. So what that could look like is, say, cooking a meal together, okay, quality time, right? And then, hey, babe, go take a bath and just relax. I'm going to take care of the dishes for you. Okay, so then what is that? Acts of service. Let's say you did together and had nothing to do with her love languages. Neither of those are her love languages. Okay. In fact, she's created a sixth love language now.
Proximity. So I feel loved just being, we can be doing work on our phones, our laptops. I just want to be in the same room. If he's outside, I'll come sit outside. I don't want to talk to him. I'm busy. I don't want him to touch me. I don't like to be touched as much, but I'll touch him. But I want to be in the same room. I want to be close to him. And so we call it, the proximity is the sixth language.
We did a debate on the podcast to figure out a new one, and she won. But yeah, so how do we advise you is don't think about things like that you learn in the way that society is bastardized, right? Think about it, everything that you learn, because even if you go with a therapist or a different program, you're always going to learn something. Read a good book like The Five Love Languages, okay? Just think about it like this. You're always going to learn, and you want to get the best, most practical solutions and move them forward, right? If you're not focused inherently on your own greed needs, then you're going to have a much better chance. Okay.
I love that. Now, your podcast, excuse me one second, because I just had it in front of me, the Morrow Marriage Podcast. Your goal is to inspire people to think differently, because how we're thinking is we're always going based on what we're told growing up, and we go based on what we see from the people around us, whether it's our parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, whichever. How would you advise couples how they should be? Would you tell them to forget what you were told, forget what you were taught as a kid, of this is how you should be in your relationship? Or would you still stick with that same boundaries, if I'm saying that right, of what
No.
was, taught to them?
Think about it like this. If you come from a very crappy upbringing, you can never learn to create the life that you want by mimicking or do it, obviously, because that was bad. And if you're trying to do the opposite, well, the opposite of bad is usually still bad, right? It's like replacing yelling with not yelling. It doesn't teach you anything. I had to learn to not just not yell, but I had to learn to lift my wife. Okay. Because when we're following those role models, it just, there's no example to really base it off of. The next thing I'll tell you is if you have a great upbringing, she had a good upbringing. She had a really great dad and a mom that overall did things pretty well. She should not have been through the chaos with me. Okay. But inherently, no child can be loved properly, even from the most expressive, wonderful parents. You can't meet the needs fast enough. Think about the last time your kid wants a sippy cup. You didn't do it fast enough or got them the wrong color. They're little freaking narcissists. Okay. And so inherently, you can't think of anything to do with role models, is what I firmly believe now. And that's why we say we're creating the new marriage. And that's why we say we're disrupting divorce with the new marriage. And these are the rules of the new marriage. And there is, so not boundaries, but rules, because the examples out there suck. They just suck, even if they're great, loving parents.
Now, your book, that impact book, I have to ask, what made you want to come up with that title? It seems like it was like you were just out and it's like, oh, that.
So I didn't name the book. I'm one of the contributing authors. So the book launches right away. The pre-sale already went viral. It's a bestseller internationally, Australia, the United States. I'm one of the contributing authors. So I wrote 5 chapters in that book. But the reason that it's called that impact book is because we want it to make a big impact globally. It's called a playbook for life. And so 44, I believe it's 44 different contributing authors have written versions of their story to help other people get through what they've been through and to tell a story of hope and encouragement.
Now, were you all able to like read what parts they were putting in, or is it just everybody just their own idea and
We didn't
into
read each
this
other.
book?
We were given the book is organized with the first letter I, so a certain number of chapters with the number I, the letter I, and then M, and then PACT. And so we were each told to choose 5 of the letter, and I can't remember them all. I think it's I for inspiration, M for motivation. I don't remember what they are, to be quite honest with you. But each, so they're the chapters are with all the different letters, and so the stories that we told were based on that word, and we were all categorized and put into the book in whatever order the editor wanted to make sure that it was cohesive and that it flowed. But no, we didn't read each other's work. If we knew some of the other authors, which we did get to know each other, then we did get to read some of the other stories. But to read, there's hundreds of stories in there. 44 authors each, wrote 5 chapters, so that's over 200 stories.
A lot of stories to read. Last question for you. Well, it's not really a question. It's more of a, can you share? Best piece of advice you can share for the viewers.
Yeah, easily. Hire us. Best piece of advice that we can really give you is this. You are responsible for your choices, so just do you. Again, if you don't know who you are and you don't like who you've been with your partner or your career, your body, that's you. And if you don't love you, then why are you even, you're quite a hypocrite defending yourself to your partner, attacking your partner and blaming them, because it's impossible. I'll say it again, just to really hit it home. You're unlovable if you don't love yourself. If you don't know who you are, you can't possibly. So everything else that comes out of your mouth is a lie. That's it. And it doesn't matter if it's not all a lie. There's too much untruth. There's not enough integrity. So that's it. You have to know who you are. You are not defined by your job, your spouse, or your children. Well, who's the man or woman behind those things? Okay. You have anything?
No, I agree. Stop focusing on your partner and focus on yourself.
So essentially would be we all need to take in self.
Yeah. A lot of self-care, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of everything self, right? And then you become selfless and your partner reaps the benefits, but so do you.
Yeah.
You reap what you sow, but in a good way.
Get what you give. Yeah.
Where can our listeners listen to or even watch your podcast?
Yeah. So Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Moral Marriage. If you want an easy link, Morrow Marriage. So our last name, marriage.com/live.
Love it. Anything, do you guys have anything on the horizon? Any little tidbits, sneak peeks that you would like to share?
Right now, I think we have to focus on what we've got. We just launched a brand new mobile app where there's communities and supporting people. We've both just written our own books a few months ago that released, Disrupting Divorce and Behind the White Picket Fence. Or we're blowing up with this podcast and the coaching. So I think right now, we've just got to take care of the people that are coming to us,
Mhm.
We're always doing a lot,
Mhm.
actually. So nothing major. Everything we do is major, actually.
There's always more.
I'll say helping 4,500 couples in over 100 plus countries.
So over 5,000 couples now, almost 5,200, I think. It's 115, I think, countries now.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's just from online, right? Your
Everything we do is online. I mean, we have met with people in person, but on a whole, it's all online on our mobile app, actually. And that's how you join coaching calls, how you go through our courses. You can read books there, and then how we hit with community, with chat. Everything is online. Yeah.
your mobile app that's available on Apple and Android.
Yes, ma'am. Morrow. It's just the same thing as our last name, all capitals, two R's facing each other, which is turning towards. And yes, it's available. Or you can go to the link go.morrowmarriage.com.
I love it. I want to thank you all for your time today. It was wonderful talking to you and getting to know the real, true you. And I'm pretty sure I can speak for everyone who's watching, but you honestly have helped with defining what a narcissist is and actually letting the world know that narcissists can change if they want to, as long as they have that.
Just give them a little nudge. And I mean a loving nudge. Yeah, it's worth it.
Very loving. I want to thank you guys again for your time. This has been the conclusion of the Summit Sessions podcast. I'm your host, Katelyn Natalie Laurent. You all have a wonderful day.
See ya.